Most mornings started the same. The hallway outside my apartment always smelled faintly like detergent and old carpet. Someone down the hall did laundry before sunrise every day. I'd step over the loose corner of the rug near the stairs, unlock my door, and stand there for a second like I was trying to remember something important. Usually, it was just the quiet. Apartment 3B isn't big. One window facing the alley, a small kitchen counter that doubles as a desk, and a couch that folds out when friends visit, which almost never happens. I make coffee, sit by the window, and scroll through messages I never sent. Drafts mostly. Hey, how have you been? Sorry I disappeared. Want to grab, delete. Coffee gets cold faster when you're staring at your phone. That morning, though, something different waited outside my door. A mug, just sitting there on the floor like it had always belonged there. Plain ceramic. Light blue. Steam still curling up from the top. I looked down the hallway, half expecting someone to come rushing out and say it was a mistake. But the building was quiet except for the washing machine rumbling somewhere below. I crouched. Tea. Definitely tea. Something herbal. Smelled a little like mint. There was a sticky note on the side. Thought you might be up early. L. I stood there longer than I should have. The only L on this floor lived across the hall. Her name was Lena. Or maybe Alina. I'd heard it once when the landlord knocked on her door about a package. She moved in 3 months ago. 40, maybe a little older. Not the kind of older that makes you think about age first, though. More the kind that makes you notice small things. The way she pushes her sleeves up when she waters the plants in the hallway window. The way she pauses before speaking, like she's editing the sentence in her head. We'd talked twice. Once in the elevator. Once when my grocery bag broke in the hallway and oranges rolled everywhere. She had crouched down to help pick them up, gathering them slowly like it wasn't awkward that we were both kneeling on the floor. You buy fruit like you're preparing for a storm, she said. I remember laughing a little too loud. Guess I panic shop. She handed one back to me, fingers brushing mine for half a second. Not intentional, just physics. Still, she looked at my hand afterward. Just briefly, then stood. That was it. No long conversation. No numbers exchanged. Just two neighbors returning to their doors, which made the mug outside mine feel strange. I picked it up carefully and knocked on her door. Nothing. I knocked again, softer this time. The door opened halfway. Lena stood there in a gray sweater, sleeves pushed to her elbows like always. Her hair was loosely tied back, a few strands falling near her cheek. She looked at the mug in my hands, then at me. Oh, she said quietly. You found it. I figured it might be yours. A small smile appeared, the kind that shows up slowly. It is. We stood there for a second, both holding the mug between us like it was evidence of something. I saw your light on most mornings, she said. Thought maybe you wake up early too. Yeah, I do. Another pause. Her eyes flicked down to my hands. I realized I was folding the corner of the sticky note over and over without noticing. So I said, you just leave tea for people. Not people, she said. Just neighbors, I thought. But she didn't say that either. She leaned lightly against the doorframe. You look like someone who forgets to drink something warm. I almost told her that was weirdly accurate. Instead, I just nodded. Well, I said, thanks. Of course. The hallway felt suddenly smaller. Too quiet. I took a step back toward my door. Good tea, by the way. You haven't tried it yet. I looked down at the mug. Right. She watched me for another second, then added softly, let me know tomorrow if I guessed the flavor right. Tomorrow. I went back into my apartment and set the mug on the counter. Steam still rising. Through the wall, I could faintly hear her moving around. A chair scraping. Cabinet closing. I stared at the sticky note again. Thought you might be up early. And for the first time in a long while, my phone buzzed on the counter with a new message from an unknown number. It said, did the tea make it to the right door? I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Yeah, right door. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Good. I wasn't completely sure. I glanced toward the wall that separated our apartments, like I could somehow see through it. You leave tea for neighbors often. I typed. There was a pause this time. No, that was the whole message. For the next few days, the mornings repeated themselves, but not exactly the same. A mug would appear outside my door. Sometimes green tea. Once something floral I couldn't name. always with a small note, always signed with just an L. And somehow, almost every time, I'd end up knocking on her door to return the mug. At first the conversations were short. Safe. How was this one? Too bitter. You look half awake. But slowly the pauses between sentences got longer. Less awkward. More settled. One morning, I found her in the hallway watering the plants near the stairwell window. The sun was coming through the glass, hitting the leaves and her hands at the same time. "You're early today," she said without looking up. "I usually am." She handed me the small metal watering can without explanation. I hesitated, then took it. We watered the plants together without saying much, just passing the can back and forth. After a while she said, "I used to do this somewhere else." "Water plants." She smiled faintly. "No, mornings like this." I waited. She rested her elbow against the windowsill. Big house. Loud kitchen. Someone always making coffee before me. She shrugged lightly. "Now it's just me and a hallway garden." The way she said it wasn't sad exactly. Just factual. "You moved here alone?" I asked. Divorce has a way of simplifying things. She said it like someone mentioning the weather. I nodded slowly, pretending to focus on a plant that definitely didn't need more water. The word divorce stayed in my head longer than it should have. Not because it was surprising, because suddenly the space between us felt more real. She noticed me thinking. "You're doing that thing," she said. "What thing?" "Where you stare at the leaves like they're giving life advice." I laughed quietly. "Just thinking. Dangerous habit." "Yeah." Another silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, just careful. My mind kept doing something annoying, though, imagining things that hadn't happened. Her sitting on my couch, us drinking tea inside instead of in the hallway. What it would feel like if her hand stayed on mine longer than necessary. I pushed the thought away. She was, what, mid-40s? 41 maybe. And I was 26. Even thinking about it felt like stepping onto ice that might crack. She handed the watering can back to me again, our fingers brushing slightly. Neither of us moved right away. "Careful," she said softly. "With the plants." "With overthinking." I smirked a little. Too late. She studied my face for a moment. Not judging, just noticing. Then she reached forward and adjusted the collar of my shirt slightly, like she'd just spotted something out of place. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. Her fingers barely touched the fabric. But the warmth of her hand stayed there long after she stepped back. "I'll leave tomorrow's tea earlier," she said casually. And as she walked back toward her door, I realized something strange. I didn't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The tea stopped for 2 mornings. I didn't notice the first day right away. Old habits carry you forward without asking questions. I opened my door, stepped into the hallway, glanced down automatically. Nothing. Just the same worn carpet and the loose thread near the stairwell. I told myself it didn't matter. Maybe she overslept. Maybe she ran out of tea. Maybe I'd imagined the whole rhythm we'd quietly built. Still, when I came back from work that evening, I slowed down near her door without meaning to. No mug. No note. Just silence behind the wood. The second morning, though, I noticed immediately. I stood there longer than usual, keys still in my hand. It felt stupid to miss something so small. A mug. Hot water. Leaves in a bag. But routines sneak up on you like that. They turn into little anchors. Without them, the day tilts a bit. I was halfway down the stairs when her door opened. "Hey." Her voice was softer than usual. I turned. Lena stood in the doorway, hair still slightly damp like she'd just showered. Gray sweater again. Different one maybe. She looked like she'd been about to leave. "Oh," I said. "Morning." A pause. Her eyes flicked briefly toward the floor outside my door. Then back to me. "I didn't make tea today." I noticed. The words came out before I could soften them. She smiled faintly, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Busy week." "Right." Another pause. The hallway clock downstairs ticked loudly through the stairwell. I shifted my weight. "You okay?" I asked. Her fingers tightened slightly around the strap of her bag. "Yeah, just thinking." That word again. Dangerous habit. I nodded like that made sense. She stepped out into the hallway, closing the door behind her. For a second we just stood there, closer than usual. "Someone asked me about you yesterday," she said. I frowned. "Who?" "The woman in 4A. The one with the loud dog. Oh, she said. Lena continued carefully. That we seem friendly. The way she said the last word carried weight, like it had quotation marks around it. I scratched the back of my neck. Are we not? Her eyes searched my face. That depends. On what? On what you think this is. The question landed heavier than it should have. My brain tried to answer too fast. Neighbors. Tea. Small conversations. Except none of that explained the way my chest tightened when she didn't leave a mug outside my door. I don't know, I admitted. Her shoulders relaxed slightly at that. Good, she said quietly. Good. It means you're at least being honest. She stepped past me toward the stairs, then paused halfway. Turned back. Also, she added, almost casually, my son is visiting this weekend. I blinked. Your son? He's 23. Something about the number made my stomach drop a little. Not because it was shocking, because suddenly the math felt real. The hallway seemed narrower. She watched my reaction closely but didn't comment. I should go, she said, but neither of us moved for a second. Her hand brushed lightly against my arm as she stepped closer to pass. A simple movement, except she didn't pull away right away. Her fingers stayed there, warm through the fabric of my sleeve. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It felt like standing at the edge of something. Not falling, just leaning. Her gaze dropped briefly to my mouth, then back to my eyes. And for half a second it felt like she might say something, or do something. Instead, she exhaled softly and stepped back. See you later, neighbor. And then she walked down the stairs before either of us crossed the line we were both suddenly very aware of. Her son arrived on Friday evening. I knew because I heard the laughter through the wall. Not loud, just easy. The kind of laughter that moves freely through an apartment like it belongs there. I tried not to pay attention. Tried being the important word. I sat on my couch with my laptop open, pretending to work. Every few minutes I'd pause typing, listening to the muffled voices next door. A man's voice, young, relaxed. Probably him. 23. 3 years younger than me. For some reason, that number kept circling my head like a loose thread. Around 9, I went out to throw away some trash. The hallway light flickered the way it always did. The air smelled faintly like someone cooking garlic downstairs. And her door opened right as I passed it. Lena stepped out first, then her son behind her. He was taller than I expected. Broad shoulders, dark hair like hers. He looked at me briefly with the neutral curiosity people give strangers in apartment hallways. This is the neighbor I told you about, Lena said. Her voice sounded normal, maybe a little careful. Her son nodded politely. Hey, I replied. We shook hands quickly. His grip was firm but casual. Then he checked his phone. I'm gonna run to the store, he told her. Back in 10. Okay. He walked down the stairs, footsteps fading. And suddenly the hallway was quiet again. Just the two of us. Lena leaned lightly against the wall beside her door, arms folded. Her expression looked tired. Not physically. More like someone carrying too many thoughts at once. So I said, your son seems cool. He is. A small smile. He's also very observant. That made me pause. Oh. She looked toward the stairwell where he'd disappeared. He asked if you're the one I make tea for. The sentence sat there between us, heavy in a quiet way. What did you say? I asked. Her fingers traced slowly along the seam of her sleeve. I said yes. And he asked why. The hallway clock ticked somewhere below. Tick, tick. I swallowed. What did you tell him? Lena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pushed herself off the wall and walked slowly toward the window near the stairs. The streetlight outside cast a soft glow across her face. Do you ever notice, she said quietly, how some people walk into your life and suddenly your routines start changing? I leaned against the opposite wall. Yeah. I used to wake up early because I had to, she continued. Breakfast for 3. School schedules. A husband who forgot where the coffee filters were every single morning. Her lips curved faintly. Now I wake up early because I'm wondering if the light is on under your door. My chest tightened. She kept looking out the window. I tell myself it's harmless, she said. Tea. Hallway conversations. A neighbor who reminds me I'm still someone. The last word was softer. I rubbed my hands together, not sure what to do with them. It is harmless, I said, though the words didn't sound convincing even to me. She turned then. Her eyes searched my face carefully. Is it? I didn't answer right away, because the truth was sitting somewhere just behind my ribs, waiting to be acknowledged. I think about you, I admitted. The words came out slower than I expected, more than a neighbor should. Her breath caught slightly. We were standing closer now without realizing it. The space between us felt thin. You shouldn't, she whispered. I know. But you do. Yeah. Silence again. Her eyes dropped briefly to my mouth before she looked away. I'm 41, she said quietly. I know. My son is 3 years younger than you. I know that too. Another pause. She stepped closer, just a small step. Close enough that I could see the faint lines near her eyes. Close enough to feel the warmth of her presence. You're making this difficult, she murmured. Am I? Her gaze lifted back to mine, and for a second it looked like she might finally let the wall fall. Instead, she asked softly, what do you think happens if we stop pretending this is just tea? Neither of us answered her question. Not out loud, anyway. The hallway stayed quiet for a long moment after she asked it. Just the hum of the light above us and the faint sound of traffic through the stairwell window. What do you think happens if we stop pretending this is just tea? My brain tried to respond, but every answer felt wrong. Too honest. Too careful. Too late. Before I could say anything, footsteps echoed up the stairs. Her son. Lena stepped back instantly, the distance between us snapping into place like it had always been there. By the time he appeared in the hallway with a grocery bag, we looked like two neighbors making polite small talk. Store was chaos, he said, passing between us. Lena nodded. Did you get the bread? Yeah. He disappeared inside her apartment again, leaving the door half open. Lena glanced at me once more. The look was brief. Then she said quietly, good night, and closed the door. The tea didn't come the next morning, or the morning after that. At first I told myself she was just busy with her son visiting. That made sense. People change routines when family's around. Still, the hallway felt strangely empty without that little blue mug outside my door. 3 days passed. Then 4. On the 5th morning, I finally ran into her again. She was locking her door when I stepped out of mine. Hey, I said. She turned, surprised. Oh, morning. Her voice sounded normal. Too normal. No teasing tone. No quiet pauses. Just polite. How's your son's visit? I asked. Good. He left yesterday. Nice. Silence. The kind that used to feel comfortable between us. Now it just felt unfinished. She adjusted the strap of her bag. I should get to work. Yeah, me too. Neither of us moved for a second. Then she walked past me toward the stairs. No brush of her hand against my arm. No lingering glance. Just footsteps fading downward. That evening I sat at my kitchen counter staring at my phone. The mug she'd first left outside my door sat near the sink. I'd washed it days ago, but never returned it. I typed a message. Did I say something wrong? Deleted. Typed again. Hey, haven't seen you much this week. Deleted. Another try. About the other night. I stopped there. The blinking cursor waited patiently. Across the wall, I could hear her moving around her apartment. Cabinets opening. Water running. A chair scraping lightly across the floor. Life happening 5 feet away. I looked at the mug again. Then at the phone. The message stayed unfinished. Eventually, I locked the screen and set it face down on the counter. Through the wall, her apartment went quiet. No tea the next morning. No knock. Just the hallway outside my door looking exactly the way it had before any of this started. And the strange part was, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. A week passed like that. Same hallway. Same routine. Just quieter. I stopped checking the floor outside my door in the mornings. At least consciously. My eyes still dropped there automatically sometimes, the way you glance at an empty chair where someone used to sit. The blue mug stayed on my counter. Clean. Waiting. One night around 10, I was halfway through reheating leftover noodles when there was a knock. Not loud. Just 2 soft taps. I froze for a second before opening the door. Lena stood there. Her hair was loose, slightly messy like she'd been running her hands through it. She wore a long cardigan over a black shirt, and for once she looked uncertain, like someone who almost didn't come. Hey, she said quietly. Hey. Neither of us moved right away. Then she noticed the mug in my hand. I hadn't realized I'd picked it up while walking to the door. "That's mine," she said. "Technically." A faint smile flickered. I wondered where it went. "You stopped giving me reasons to return it." The words slipped out before I softened them. She looked down at the floor for a moment. "Yeah." The hallway light hummed above us. Finally, she gestured toward the mug. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. My apartment looked the same as always. Small, slightly cluttered. The couch half covered with a blanket I'd forgotten to fold. She walked in slowly, glancing around like she was learning the space. "You always sit here in the mornings?" she asked, nodding toward the chair by the window. "Usually." She touched the back of the chair lightly with her fingers. I imagined it. "What?" "This place." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Why?" She exhaled slowly before answering. "Because it's easier to stop something if you pretend it's smaller than it is." That landed heavier than I expected. "You stopped the tea," I said. "Yes." "Why?" She looked at the mug again. "Because my son left." I frowned slightly. "I don't follow." She met my eyes then. "Because when he was here, I could pretend the reason I woke up early was normal." She gave a small shrug. "Mother habits. Cooking breakfast. Making tea. And when he left, I didn't have an excuse anymore." The honesty in her voice made my chest tighten. "You don't need an excuse," I said. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "No. No." Silence stretched between us again. She stepped closer to the counter, close enough that the space felt familiar again, like it had before things got complicated. "I've been married," she said quietly, "for 18 years. I nodded. "I know. What you don't know is how long I felt invisible in that house." Her fingers traced lightly along the rim of the mug. "You start believing that version of yourself after a while." I didn't interrupt. "Then one morning," she continued, "I noticed a light under your door, and someone who looked just as alone as I felt." Her voice softened. That scared me. "Why?" "Because it meant I wasn't imagining things." We stood there for a moment, both absorbing that. Finally, I said the thing I'd been holding back. "I missed the tea." She smiled faintly. "I know." "How?" "Because I missed leaving it." That made something in my chest loosen. Not solved, just understood. She reached forward and took the mug gently from my hands. Our fingers brushed for a second. Neither of us pulled away immediately. "This doesn't have to be a mistake," I said quietly. She studied my face carefully. "You're sure you know what you're choosing?" "No," I admitted. "But I know what silence felt like this week." Her eyes softened. After a moment, she nodded once. Not dramatic. Just a small decision settling into place. "Okay," she said softly. The tea came back the next morning. Not outside my door. Inside my kitchen. I woke up around the same time as always. Early enough that the sky outside the window was still figuring out whether it wanted to be blue or gray. For a second I forgot what had happened the night before. Then I smelled it. Mint. I walked into the kitchen and found Lena standing by the counter, sleeves pushed to her elbows, pouring hot water into 2 mugs like she'd done it there 100 times. She glanced over her shoulder. "You leave your door unlocked," she said. "You knocked. You answered." Fair point. I rubbed my eyes and leaned against the doorway, watching her move around my small kitchen like she was testing the space. Not claiming it, just learning the rhythm. "Careful," I said. "With the tea." "With my routines." A small smile appeared. "That ship sailed weeks ago." She handed me one of the mugs. The same light blue one from the hallway mornings. We sat by the window in the same 2 chairs I always used for coffee. Except this time the silence felt different. Not cautious, just quiet in a good way. Outside, the alley was waking up slowly. Someone rolled a trash bin across the pavement. A car door shut somewhere down the street. Lena blew gently across the top of her tea. 8:47, she said, glancing at the microwave clock. "That's oddly specific. That's when your light usually turns on." I raised an eyebrow. "You've been timing it." She shrugged, observing. I took a sip. The tea tasted exactly the same as the first morning she'd left it outside my door. For a while we just sat there, sometimes talking, sometimes not. It didn't feel like we needed to rush anything now. Days turned into weeks like that. Not dramatic, just adjustments. She still had her apartment across the hall. Still watered the plants by the stairwell window. Still wore those soft sweaters with the sleeves pushed up. But sometimes she'd knock on my door at night with 2 mugs already in her hands. Sometimes I'd leave black coffee outside hers when she worked late. Once, her son visited again. We all had dinner together. He watched us carefully for the first 10 minutes, then relaxed when he realized no one was pretending. Life didn't become perfect. Some mornings we talked about the future and got quiet again afterward. Some nights, she went back to her place earlier than I wanted. But the hallway between our doors stopped feeling like a line you couldn't cross. One morning, months later, I opened my door at exactly 8:47. And there it was again, a mug of tea sitting on the floor. I picked it up, smiling before I even looked at the note. Some routines are worth keeping. I glanced across the hallway. Her door opened right on cue. Lena leaned against the frame, watching me with that same patient look she'd had the first day we met. "Did it make it to the right door?" she asked. I held up the mug. "Yeah." She nodded. And for a second we just stood there, smiling at something that probably didn't make sense to anyone else. Something small. Something ordinary. Something that quietly changed both our lives. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories would you like to hear next?